episode about why you're stuck, right? You've gone to therapy. Maybe you've read the books, you listened to the podcast, but you keep repeating the same patterns, right? Maybe you've listened to loads of my podcasts and you're like, why do I keep getting into the same patterns, right? Why am I still stuck, right? In the same patterns of relationship, of in your dating life, maybe even in work, around your confidence, your self-esteem and so forth. So listen to this. We're going to really dive into this and why it happens, right? And what you can do about it, right? Because I work with a lot of men who come to me. I would say about 80% of my clients come to me and they've done therapy. They've been in therapy for anything from 1 to 3 years, right? And they're like, I know the patterns now, but they keep happening. What do I do? Right? They dug into the childhood. They understand the childhood patterns, like why their attachment style is the way it is, like how their father was to them that damaged their confidence, where they got neglected from their mother. They understand, how the bullying's impacted them, why they don't open up with their emotions. Like they understand the why, right? And how and the history, but they're stuck in creating a new future, right? They're stuck in changing the present. It comes up so often. So I'm going to tackle this in today's episode. I know I've been touching on it a little bit over the last few weeks, but it's for good reason because it keeps coming up, right? So maybe it's you still pulling away when a woman gets close to you, right? Or you're still getting really anxious when you meet somebody, or you're still not able to really express your emotions and feelings at a level that has depth, where like someone really feels you and you have those beautiful moments of connection, right? Or maybe for you is you get defensive, right? When someone points out something about you that you don't like, that hurts a little bit, right? Or maybe you're finding yourself chasing validation. So in this mini episode, I'm going to cover all that, right? And I do these mini episodes every week, pretty much, about something that's really coming up in the work. And this is something that's come up, right? So why hasn't therapy shifted anything for you, right? Really important thing. First thing is it's all in your head. You're still in your head. Because the thing is, the therapy is great, especially, talk therapy. I did talk therapy for about 3 years. It's great, but you sit on the other end of a Zoom or in person, depending what it is, and it's talking heavy. It's mind. It's all in the mind, right? It's very much thinking, mental processing, insights, language. Like it doesn't get into the kind of somatic, the body experience, the trigger, the felt experience in the body, right? It doesn't touch those parts of us. It doesn't get deeper beyond the thinking, beyond the reason, the story, like maybe the mental experience of the emotions, right? So you might be intellectually self-aware. You might have all this awareness, but emotionally, and from this kind of emotional imprint, nothing's shifted, right? You haven't created any new emotional imprints around these events, right? Comes up so much oh, I understand everything, it's all in my head, but I keep doing it. I still freeze when she says to me, where do you want this to go in a relationship, right? Or they're still not taking the opportunity to take their relationship deeper, right? You don't have anyone to push you, right? That's another thing that happens in therapy. A lot of the time in talk therapy, it's talking, 50 minutes is up, bye. Yeah. There's this, you talk, you can go in circles. I've met people who have been in therapy for 10 years and they're like, I've done loads of work. And then, you ask them a question like, okay, so when your partner says something you don't like, what do you do? And they're like, I just freeze. I'm like, okay. And they know exactly why they freeze, as I've talked about, but they still do the same thing. There's no one to push you to go, next time this happens, what action are you going to take differently? How are you going to breathe differently? How are you going to take in the information differently? And how are you going to respond? There's no charting of a forward path. There's just the understanding of the past, right? And the understanding of the past is good, but you don't have anyone to really be a reflective mirror to show you and to reflect to you what needs to shift, right? Someone who can call out when actually you're being the dick, right? And you're explaining all your feelings and emotions about it, about what happened in your relationship. And they're not just validating you, right? This is a really important one as well. It's like people who actually say to you, actually, you're probably the dick here. I'm not in those words, right? But I'm being harsh, but maybe it's actually you, not all your partners that keep doing this, right? And this is something I find often with people who've been in a lot of therapy, is they're just seeking a lot of validation for their experience, which is really valuable. But actually what we need is a bit of challenge as well. And that's often really lacking in the therapy room. And I say this from a point of view of I don't believe that, there's a lot of talk about talk therapies for women. I think it's like 80% of therapists are women. So there's often a lot of men going and sitting in front of women and they're listening to their feelings and emotions, but they're also listening to men through their own narrative of men, right? And that isn't always a particularly healthy narrative. And the reason there's not a healthy narrative because men collectively have done all sorts of things through history, right? And it's very hard to separate yourself in those moments, right? So I think this is something also that happens is like men are just like listened to and felt, but maybe not challenged by their therapist because, maybe the woman that's sitting in front of them, their therapist, doesn't really specialize in challenge. They're not used to having to challenge a man. Maybe they feel uncomfortable with challenging a man, right? And the final piece where I think it really goes wrong in therapy, right, is no one's taking you to practice in an arena where you're in a charged moment, right, emotionally charged moment, and having to make a different choice to what you would habitually do, your habit would have you do. Like you're in a moment where you're like standing and you're like in front of somebody and you're like, oh, I need to open up now. But there's no structural guidance. I mean, structural, like you don't put you in a place where it's safely structured so you can practice opening up, right? That's missing, right? And that's one of the problems as well. So there's no real-time feedback. There's no real-time practice that happens in the therapy room, whatever you want to call it, right? So what actually helps, right? And I say this from working with these, like I said, I've worked with hundreds of men over the last couple of years. I've been doing this for over 15 years and completely full-time for the last 5. What really helps, right? What I see also in the communities that I've been in, whether that's the Authentic Man community, which the doors are open to again for the next literally couple of weeks before they close for another 6 months, but also in the men's programs that I've traveled the world to go and be in. I've traveled across the country in the UK to be in. What I've seen that actually works for men, especially men, right? So the first thing is being witnessed by other men in your stuff. In the charged moment of feeling uncomfortable, in the moment where you have to express how you feel about love or how you feel about, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your, what's the words I'm looking for? Your limiting beliefs. And being seen by other men and speaking that to another man in front of you or a group of men, right? Being witnessed. Right? In the charged moment, in the moment where you're like, I don't want to say this because I think I'm going to be judged, right? That is the perfect moment to express the thing you want to be judged, you think you're going to be judged on. Because in that moment, when you speak it out loud and then you see the men looking at you like, yeah, I feel you, brother. Like, I know that sounds super like, spiritual and stuff, but it's not. It's like, I feel you because, yeah, they feel you because they felt the same. Right. And they're nodding back to you, like, yeah, man, thank you for sharing. I really appreciate that. You hit this moment where you're like, oh, I shared something that's vulnerable that I didn't think that would be really accepted. I would be judged. And then I'm met with no judgment. I'm met with care. I'm met with like warmth. The very things we don't believe that can happen in the real world. And when we do that, that starts to shift your nervous system around what you start to expect in those moments, right? And I say this because I've seen loads of men come through my programs. Like last night, I finished up my Breaking the Chains of Avoidance, my program for avoidant men. And when the men spoke to each other, because there's a session I do where we and I'm not going to give all the details, it's a really special session, but actually they give some feedback to each other about how the changes they've seen in each other through the 12 weeks. And you could physically see how the men were more expressive, more open, and able to bring that into their lives, right? Because they were continually practicing and being witnessed in this in the program, right? I've seen it, hands down. Another thing that I think is really important is I touched on the kind of nervous system, but I'm getting deeper into this, is like nervous system regulation together. So co-regulation, you practice self-soothing, which is regulating alone, right? But also there's a practicing co-regulation with other men, right? Co-regulation is one of the things that often as men we're really bad at in relationship, right? We're bad at creating co-regulation, which is so vital for a romantic relationship to really flourish. Co-regulation is regulating together or regulating somebody else. So you come into regulation, this calm, this mental expansiveness, creativity, all the states instead of stress, fear, and total shutdown where, you can't barely think or move. You're so stuck in your shit, in your fear and worry. Regulation brings us into this social space where our brain is online, our bodies are open, we are quite relaxed and present and alert, right? And you get to practice that again and again in the group, right? In group settings. And this really helps men move past their patterns, right? Another piece I've mentioned in a previous episode is you hear other men breaking through their patterns. So you are reinforcing the idea that it's possible. So many of the patterns we have, are limiting beliefs about ourselves, the things we think we can and can't do, right? The world won't let us do, we're not possible. When we see another man come in and go, hey, I did that thing, look where I am now, you're like, oh shit, well, I'm just like him, that's possible, right? Makes a massive, massive difference, right? Massive, massive difference. And I've seen it time and time again. And another thing that's really important, and I've probably gone beyond 3 here, right? But just call this the third one. Accountability. We're scared of accountability, right? Because we're scared of failure. We're scared of like, oh, if I don't fulfill on what I'm accountable, I'm going to quote unquote failed. And someone's going to look down on me and think I'm useless and I'm going to feel shit about myself. But you wouldn't believe how different the experience is, right? Because I hold my clients accountable when I work with them one-to-one. But when I work in group, it's like, we create accountability structures so people are supported, men are supported in getting to where they really want to in the areas that matter, right? And that's something that's really missing often from therapy is like tightly held accountability of like, you're going to do this thing, you're going to do that thing. Great. I didn't do it this week. Why didn't you do it this week? What happened? What came up for you? Let's get you on doing it next week. And then the celebration of when it is done. Right? Not the beating of the stick when it's not done. It's more of like a pick up, play, I believe in you. Like so many of the men in the groups I've been running in the last few years have said like just being accountable has made so much of a difference. And the science backs it up. The science backs it up when you tell a number of people that you're going to do something. I haven't got the numbers in front of me. You become X more times likely to fulfill on that thing, right? Not less. Right. And the fear of judgment of not doing it is also tackled when you do not do it one week or something comes up and you don't do it. This is all this cyclical thing of meeting your edges. Right. And this is another point, right? Point 4, you constantly in this space of like meeting an edge, being held to that edge and pushed slightly by other men. Right. And then supported in getting there. Right. That's the thing. So it's this process of really being held accountable to push towards your edge and overcome the edge and move through it into a new edge. And this is the value of community, the value of group programs. Because, and this is me closing now, right? If you don't do this, you're just going to stay alone, trying to move things on your own, reading the books, talking to your friends, not understanding why. You'll start to blame other people. You'll start to blame women. You'll start to blame your colleagues. You'll start to blame other people. And that's when you get really stuck because blame doesn't help you move anywhere. It just makes you powerless. You hand over the power to other people. Yeah, because what it is, you need to embody your own change consistently, creating a vision for what you want and stepping into that vision, having people around you that look at you and listen to you from the vision of you see yourself, not as the part of you, the past you that you're trying to get away from and try to shift from. So if you're interested in the community, as I've mentioned, I've opened the doors. Already had a few people sign up already. It's an intimate group. It's like a premium service that I'm offering of brotherhood, of connection. We meet twice a month logistically. I'm telling you, we meet twice a month, but we also meet in person because it's so important for us men to come together, right, and connect. And it's been a real highlight, the times that we've come together and met, and the men have really loved it. And there's been some beautiful friendships that's really formed, and like checking in when people are like feeling a bit down. People are supporting them. We're checking in every week saying how we're feeling, what's going on, what we're really looking forward to. It's like the friendship you wish you had, right? Or as someone put it to me once recently, he said these words, like this, I never realized I needed a group of men like this in my life to support me. And I'd always shied away from it. And I'm so glad I've had the experience of feeling it. Right. So if this is something you're interested in, you want to really get on this now because the doors are going to close in about 2 weeks' time. right? And then it's going to be closed again for 6 months, right? 6 months is a pretty long time. So you've got to reply, because not everybody can join, because it needs to be the right sort of person. You know, we have a conversation and so forth to see if you are the right sort of person. Because like I said, it's an intimate group of people. We need to keep the dynamic high. We need to keep the energy high and so forth, right? So if you feel like this is for you, there's a link below. You can drop me an email and then we can have a chat about it. Until then, ciao, ciao.